bit of, there we go. I think we're up now, live. Welcome to the special meeting of the joint governing bodies with Shawnee County Commissioners and the Topeka City Council. I will call this meeting to order. We will stand and give the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand as you are able. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, we need to call the roll. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Padilla,
Here.
Council Members Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acala, Ortiz,
Here. On time.
Banks,
Here.
Kell, Miller,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
Hofer,
Here.
Commissioners Cook,
Here.
Rapon,
Here.
and Mays.
Here.
All right. So we have Valdivia Acala and Kell. She's online. All right. So we have 12 present.
Okay. Did I hear Councilman Kell's
Yes,
online?
She's online.
Okay,
sir.
good. Oh, Valdivia. Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to non-action items, Madam Clerk.
First, A is discussion on the homelessness. So it's a joint city-county work session to discuss how the All Hands on Deck Homeless Initiative will work hand-in-hand with the Built for Zero model.
Okay, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn this over to Barry Feeker and to Brett Martin, who will give us an overview of the All Hands on Deck briefing.
Okay. Welcome, Pastor. Brett,
Thank you.
thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Perez, for bringing us all together here today. Thank you, Mayor Padilla, council members. Thank you, Chairman Cook, county commissioners, and everybody else that's here to talk about a issue that we all know is very important in our community, as well as many communities around the nation. And we're going to focus specifically on Topeka Shawnee County with what we're talking about today. In your general packet, there's the PowerPoint that is in the information that will be the same thing that we see here. In front of you is a blue folder that has some specific slides from the PowerPoint that you can see in a larger version. Nothing different that's in there other than two brochures. One is what's called the All Hands on Deck brochure, Compassionate Strategies, as well as Mobile Access Partnership, which we'll briefly talk about today. So turn your attention, Brett and I are going to co-present on this, and you're going to understand why as we go through this. We're addressing the homeless concerns in Topeka and Shawnee County, and there's a question. And the question is chronic homelessness solvable in Topeka, Shawnee County? Having been in the space of working with the homeless for many years, we did everything we could, Topeka Rescue Mission, to try to get as many people off the streets as we possibly could, to try to keep people alive and try to give them a new opportunity. Some of you were here about 3 years ago when I presented the fact that this is growing too big. We're post-pandemic, and we have growing homeless concerns and economic issues that probably are going to present to us some issues that will not be able to be addressed solely by one organization. Here we are today, 3 years later, talking about this in a much broader sense, and I know both county leaders and city leaders have been addressing this more than once. But the question is it solvable? Do we have to, in the United States of America, believe that it's okay that people have nowhere to go? And I think most of us, as we really ask ourselves the question, the answer to that is no. We're the most affluent nation in the world. We live in the Midwest. This is the heart of America. And should it be this way? And the answer would probably be no, but what do we do about it? So if we do believe that it's solvable, do we want to solve it? And so the question is, if we're okay with it, we really don't do anything with it. We know people are not okay with it. But if we want to end it, do we believe we can? That's the second question. If we don't want it, if we don't want to end it, then we stop. If we don't believe, we may not be able to achieve it. We may want a thing, but if we don't believe the thing that we want, we probably never will get it. But if we go through door number 1 and door number 2, are we willing to do what it takes? And that's what we're going to unpack here this afternoon, to be able to establish a template of what we believe can be done. It's not going to solve everything. It is a basis by which we can develop a strategic framework to move forward to actually end chronic homelessness in our community. We throw this up here for illustration purposes. Everybody knows what this is. And so asking the question, what's it for? Some people will say to throw it. Some people will say to catch it. Some people will say that to kick it, which pays off if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, especially. Some people will say to run it. But at the end of the day, the point of the football is to get it across the goal line. And so if we look at the football as ending chronic homelessness, as trying to get it across the goal line to possibly end chronic homelessness in the next 5+ years, we need to know where we are on the field. So the next diagram is to just illustrate that we need to ask ourselves, where are we at today? What are we doing? And what are the barriers between getting where we are today and getting that football across the goal line? If you look at the left-hand side column there and call that the goal line that we're trying to get to, if you're down on the 10-yard line on the other side of the field, it's one strategy. If you're on the 50-yard line, it's a different strategy. If you're on the 10-yard line in what they call the red zone, it's a different strategy. And the challenge with this issue, it's not one play at a time. It's multiple plays, but we need to prioritize what we're going to do first, second, and so forth. So what we're going to do now is attempt to unpack what we understand about where we are right now. This document is in your packet where you can see it closer. It is the summer point-in-time count. All of you are familiar with point-in-time count. It's normally done once a year in January. It's a requirement for continuum of care cities that receive HUD funds. The January count is 1 day. They call it the point-in-time count. We've had some conversations over the years. We realize point-in-time 1 day a year does not really do the job. And so thanks to our leaders in our community, they said, let's do another one. And so this is the summer count. It was done in July. You see the number 546. That was a slight increase than what it was in January. So not a big increase, but the realization is 1 day a year, not necessarily blanketing everywhere people exist. So that's a piece of information where we are on the field, 546. If we go to the next slide, you'll definitely need to look in your packet to see the numbers here. This is the Shawnee County Department of Corrections homeless population in July and January. And thanks to Director Cole, he put this together very thoroughly. You will see an additional number of 126 over in the blue column. That's what was discovered. We need to take both of those numbers because HUD does not require us to count these numbers, doesn't even want to know about them necessarily. But these are individuals in Shawnee County Jail that may have come in without an address, more than likely. And if something's not done after they've completed their sentence, they may go back to the streets, adding to the numbers. So again, where are we at on the field? You take those two numbers together. Before we get further into those numbers, we want to talk about cost. Before we get to the financial piece of the cost, we want to talk about what is the impact in our community on what we call homelessness, in specific chronic homelessness, which is individuals who have experienced homelessness for a year or longer, or multiple episodes within a few years period, oftentimes having a physical disability, compound trauma, mental health challenges, and addiction can be in that, and more. But what is the cost to our community? Obviously, those who are suffering, the humanitarian suffering. It's not only confined to people who are experiencing homelessness. It could be their family members. It could be the neighborhoods which they reside in that is creating humanitarian suffering because of things like human waste. And we could unpack that a lot. We look at what's happened in the East Coast with hurricanes. And we call it a hurricane. There they call it a crisis. And so the people who are experiencing homelessness are in a crisis. And our community could well say that it's in a crisis as well. Not just here, many other places. Humanitarian suffering. Another impact that cost us is moral, ethical, and spiritual. Where are we in those in regards to who we are? Which goes into the third point there, community conscious. Who we are as a community is somewhat defined how we take care of our most vulnerable citizens, how we identify them, how we understand them, how we invest in them. And so who are we as Topeka and Shawnee Countyans in regards to our conscience? We can break it into something that that is related to financial costs, and that's community health. Where are we at in regards to the health cost of unattended health concerns of those who experience chronic homelessness? And then there's the safety concerns, safety for the people who experience this, but also the safety for the whole community in regards to if you are desperate, you may do desperate things. We've been fortunate not to have a lot of understandable, tragic situations occur. We've had too many in this community compared to others. But if we don't address this sooner than later, we may have more tragedies because desperate people do desperate things, make wrong decisions. I'm going to have Brett unpack the financial piece of this, of what we know today in regards to where we are on the field.
Thank you. So when we talk about the financial impact in our community, there are some things that we know and there are some things that we don't know. So what we know is that on average at the national level for individuals who are experiencing homelessness, the cost is roughly $36,000 per individual for a community. We know that when individuals reach the age of 60 and beyond, that number goes from $36,000 to $175,000 per individual. So what we know is that we have our point in time count from July, and we have the Shawnee County Corrections count, and that gives us a number of 672. We know that the number is likely beyond that because there are those who don't meet the HUD requirements. So we certainly know that this is probably a low number. When we take 85% of that number, we get 571. We came to 85% because our point in time count told us that 15% of our point in time count population was aged 60 or older. So it leaves us with 15%. So we took the 85% at 571 and we multiplied that by the 36,000, and that gave us $20.5 million that we are spending on that 85%. For those who are age 60 and over, that is roughly 101. We took that times we took that times 175,000, which gave us 17.6 million. And when we total those two numbers, we get $38.1 million. There are a number of things that are included in those dollars that communities spend. We think of things like human services and social services. So we think of things like shelter, we think of things like housing services, we think of things like case management, we think of things even like homeless prevention. When we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about things like emergency department visits, we're talking about dental care, we're talking about mental health as well, we're talking about substance use, so behavioral health as a whole, we're talking about first responders, we're talking about law enforcement, we're talking about the judicial system. All of those things, in addition to the environmental costs that Barry alluded to earlier, all of those things are wrapped up in that $36,000 per individual and that $175,000 per individual. So we've begun to collect that data locally. What I can tell you is that we have 8 partners so far who have responded to our call for data. And we have none of those partners who are in the medical realm, who are in mental health, substance use, and we have not begun to look at first responders, law enforcement, or judicial, and we're already just shy of $10 million. So my guess is that this $38.1 million is rather conservative for what we're spending in Shawnee County. Additionally, we can say that of the 126 that were counted by Shawnee County Corrections, we know that it's more than $36,000 per year for an individual who is incarcerated, and it's certainly higher than $36,000 per year for those who have been diagnosed with severe and persistent mental illness. And so we're comfortable in saying that this $38.1 million is a conservative estimate in terms of what we're spending right now in our community for those who are experiencing homelessness. And as you saw from the point in time count numbers from July, from January to July at both Shawnee County Corrections and the city of Topeka, that we've seen an increase. And so we're spending nearly $40 million, and the numbers are increasing.
Anytime along the presentation here, please ask for clarification on any of this. So we get a little bit into the weeds here. It gets a little complex. What we purpose to do is to exhaust every avenue we can to find out what actual costs are in our community. So we're not just taking the national numbers on an average, but what is it costing here, which will then help us to understand, are we spending it the right way, or is there a better way to spend the dollars that are already being spent? Another place to analyze where we are in the field was community input that happened over a period of months through the city of Topeka's innovation approach of employing a consultant, Silver Consulting. In your packet is a more expanded version of this, two-sided. There were 9 recommendations that were presented to council. Of those 9 recommendations, there were top 3 that are listed here. Again, this is in your packet. You can see the 9 as well as the 3. Number 1 bullet, the top 3 that were recommended were establishment of a one-stop homeless resource center, a low barrier shelter, and a permanent tiny home community of 8 homes. Also, it was recommended that they consider doing what we're doing here today, is talking about a multi-sector strategy, which we'll unpack here more. Again, this came out through some experts, community volunteers, city staff, to be able to, and county, to be able to attempt to say what are our priorities of addressing this issue in our community. Again, where are we on the field? Approximately 1 month ago, the Topeka City Council heard about Built for Zero. Great presentation to talk about a national template that could be employed here in Topeka. We're going to talk about this more in a moment. Built for Zero is a good movement with measurable, equitable outcomes for homeless. This afternoon I spent an hour, actually 2 hours, on phones and podcast with experts in the Built for Zero arena. Just in case you had questions, I might know more. So, okay, this is a little bit where we're on the field today. It's an overview. There's a lot more details about the persons, the people, the mental illness, the addictions, the compound trauma, the judicial issues, and so forth that we didn't unpack in any of that. This is this very big overview. But okay, so we know this. We have a point in time count. You have a recommendation. We'd like to embrace Built for Zero. What's next? And then the what's next is who, and then the how. So we want to unpack that. So this is where we introduce the Compassion Strategies, nonprofit organization, working with United Way. We'll explain that in a minute. Campaign to end chronic homelessness, Topeka, Shawnee County, by 2030. How'd you come up with that date? Well, we didn't roll dice. We actually looked at this, what we felt could be done if we do what we need to do in the process of ending the issue of chronic homelessness. If we end chronic homelessness by 2030, according to the Built for Zero definition, it will be what's called functional zero. In other words, more people are exiting homelessness than are coming in. And if we do see people in the streets, it's going to be rare, it's going to be brief and non-reoccurring. Those are the general benchmarks. What can we do to make sure that happens? But also, if we achieve that, we're not done. There's a lot of things that produce the issue of homelessness, more so today than we've known in our lifetimes. And so we will have to, as they say, examine upstream and what we need to do. But to get us going where we need to go with the current conditions that we have, we are establishing a campaign. A lot of the people behind us here are part of this campaign, and you'll see some evidence of that in a moment. Yes, sir.
I don't see how you're getting to that aspect of seeing few and far between, because of how many people we have in Topeka that choose to be homeless sorry, that choose to be homeless. And since I've been in office, there's been one gentleman in my district, 470 in Topeka Boulevard every single day. And if that's, I've talked to him. If he chooses that way, I don't see how you're gonna stop the sight of it if when the people that are choosing to be homeless are out there front and center every single day, and it's not gonna be reoccurring. Because we need to really look at this as we're not trying to end homelessness, because it's not gonna end, because there's always gonna be those people that want to be homeless. And we can't do anything to force them into a home or into a shelter that isn't gonna pop right back out on the street again. That's some people, that's where they're comfortable. That's where they know they exist the best for them. So it's one of those things, I think we need to look at things, not in the aspect of ending homelessness, but trying to help the ones that want to be helped and working with the ones that may not want the help.
Councilman Kell, I appreciate that, and that is
If I may, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Remember, this is, we're still, by our governing body rules, address the chair when you wish to speak, and then wait for that response, and let us work towards getting this presentation so that we can then get into the discussion with the complete material available to us, rather than getting started on the discussion before we've heard the entire presentation.
My apologies,
Thank you.
Mayor. I opened up the gate on that, didn't
That's
ask
all
you
right.
about it. So we will address that issue, providing we have time, because there is a way to address that issue. Thank you. So moving forward, the approach to compassion strategy, so that you're aware, is building a bridge, working together through multi-focused approaches to bring dignity and hope to our unsheltered homeless. Very, very basic there. It's in one of your brochures that talks about the approach here. Primary activities of compassion strategies are the Mobile Access Partnership, which is an outreach in the community to the unsheltered homeless, was birthed out of the pandemic. There's a brochure in your packet is on this as well. It's been in operation for a little over 3 years now. The other one is this AHOD, or All Hands on Deck, campaign to end chronic homelessness. Since May of 21, there's been over 1,750 unique individuals who have reached out through the Mobile Access Partnership, which is twice a week, at various locations around the community, mobile, that has access to work with their animals through Street Dog Coalition, Topeka Police Department's City ID program, Vallejo Behavioral Health in regards to mental health services, Shawnee County Health in regards to public health, Topeka Rescue Mission, food, supplies, Kansas State University School of Veterinarian Program, Shawnee County Library providing with supplies, as well as Stormont Vale's Mobile Medical Unit. And there's more. This is a networking of different agencies that bring different tools to engage with people who are experiencing homelessness predominantly in the streets today. Just one activity, I want you to be aware of that. The second one is what we're talking about more so today, campaign to end chronic homelessness. So in order to have an effort that occurs by bringing people together, there is the term called backbone organization. Today, the city of Topeka is the backbone organization for Impact Avenues, working with students that are in school who are experiencing homelessness and their families. So the city of Topeka is already doing that now as backbone. In regards to backbone, what's its definition? Serving as coordinating bodies to bring together a diversity of stakeholders, leading to a synchronized effort to achieve a common goal. What we have developed here, we believe that you'll see, is compassion strategies, all hands on deck. Multi-sector coalition is functioning and will be functioning as a backbone organization. In order to do that, we have to partner with certain agencies that have certain expertise and tools. So as we had the vision for this and was casting the vision a number of months ago, we decided with the magnitude of the financial resources needed to address this, could be grants, could be government funds, could be private funds, all the above. We needed a fiscal agent that was going to be able to handle the different avenues, to be able to account for, to be able to manage it, to be able to get the job done. And that's where we began having conversations with the Kaw Valley, United Way of Kaw Valley, and that's where Brett comes into this, and if you want to explain that more. And this is in your packet as well, I believe.
So when we talk about the things that United Way of Caw Valley brings to the table, obviously those who are on city council are familiar with the work that we do with grants, as we're the vendor for the social services grants for the city of Topeka, grant management, grant writing, a fiscal agency for a host of other grants, as well as coalition leadership. Coalition leadership is part of what we do, facilitating those meetings, providing the infrastructure for those coalitions in order to be able to move forward and make progress on key issues that no one organization, no one program, no one government agency are able to tackle on their own. Additionally, we have strong relationships with the three sectors, with government, with the private business sector, and with the nonprofit sector. And through those strong relationships, we have built trust. And as you can imagine, in order to take on something of this magnitude, there needs to be trust across the board. And progress on this is going to move at the speed of that trust. So we're happy to partner with Compassion Strategies on this to serve some of those backbone functions in order to be able to move this movement forward.
Thank you. Again, analyzing where we are in the field. In your packet also is an expanded version of addressing the issue of homelessness in our community. On this side of the document, it's called Homeless Engagement. In there, we have a scoring system of data management, homeless outreach program, and the need to expand that, our coordinated mobile access partnership, and the one-stop homeless resource center. If we look at that and we score it on a 0 to 5, we have a 0. We don't have that right now. And so these are touch points with our unsheltered chronic homeless, where we then not only count them, but we outreach them, we bring them in off the streets to develop a relationship with them, providing basics, as well as future having a place that is pretty much like MAP and Compassion Strategies, much larger, of a one-stop resource center. On the other side of the document, it is housing action considerations. We also have a grading on those. One is a temporary low barrier shelter, that's a 0 right now. Transitional housing village, a 0. Education Equipping Center is like Topeka Rescue Mission, helping people graduate from homelessness. Community-based transitional housing with programming, we have those existing in our community. We need more. Permanent community-based rehousing, permanent tiny home community, that's what was recommended by the consultant, as well as additional permanent low-income housing. Again, you have a document there, so it's not just 3 things, it's many things, and this is in the document that we plan to work on over a period of time. So what's the strategy? Developing a multi-sector, getting as many different people with different lenses in the community together around this issue to work together in concert to be able to get the job done. This is an overview of the multi-sector coalition system. A campaign chair, that's Brett and Martin. A coaching team, a strategic development team, a sector team with quarterbacks, sector team leadership, community sectors, community feedback. In your packet is a one-sheet front and back that lists the names of different people, and not in this format, but in something a little simpler for you to see. But this is the campaign chair and the coaches. I'm serving as strategy on the campaign and eventually project development consultant. And Carrie Higgins with the city, Courtney Barr with Topeka Rescue Mission are serving as coaches to work with the quarterbacks. This is the strategic development team. You can see the names on there. These are people that have already been working on this for quite some time. This list will grow. And we've just begun populating what we call sector teams. Explain this one a little bit more. Courtney Barr, coach of this group of sectors, which are 8, behavioral health, corrections, universities, education, faith, first responders, law enforcement, health, and wellness, or veterans, human trafficking, lived experiences, and animal health. The LQB is the lead quarterback. The AQB is the assistant quarterback. You can see in the faith area, we have a lead quarterback, we have an assistant quarterback, we have a lead quarterback in the first responders and human trafficking and animal health. Each one of these 2 team approaches, 2 leader approaches, the quarterback and the assistant quarterback, will be selecting 8 additional people to fill their sector. So this is this team here. Another team that's the same amount, total of 16, is business, investors, government, housing, landlords, judicial, neighborhoods, nonprofit, social services, and seniors. Each team consisting of 10, 2 leaders, quarterbacks, put them all together, that's 160 people representing their sector. And we'll explain how this all navigates working together by this diagram. The campaign chair and the coaching team takes the concept. Let's call it a low barrier shelter. We think we need one in our community. They vet it best they can, pass it on to the strategic development team. They vet it. Basically look for the landmines and the potholes. If they feel secure and are satisfied with the findings and all the research that we've done on that, they pass it off to the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks give their feedback on how they see that before they pass it on to their teams. The sector teams take it and then they pass it on into the community. When the community then sees this through business lens or animal health lens or veterans lens, they have the opportunity to communicate it back to their teams, back to the quarterbacks, back to the strategic development team before we pull the trigger. So one day when we come to city, county, and we say we believe that we need a low barrier shelter based upon all the research, and here is what the community is saying through multiple different inputs, that will give you some idea of what we're trying to do. It's not one organization saying we need to do this, it's multiple different entities saying we believe this is where we need to go. Breaking down the Built for Zero compassion strategy relationship, is it the same? Is it different? Is it competition or what? I'm going to ask Brett to unpack this to explain the relationship.
So when we talk about Built for Zero and all hands on deck, we're talking about, for Built for Zero, they describe themselves as a movement and a methodology to achieve functional zero. Barry explained just a few moments ago what functional zero was, more people exiting than are entering homelessness. All hands on deck, we call ourselves a campaign to end chronic homelessness. So similar in terms of the approaches. Built for Zero has a by-name, data-driven approach, which is key to the success of those communities that adopt it. We believe we need to improve our local data system in order to implement a by-name approach. Built for Zero communities, in order to be successful, assemble a community-wide team. We, as Barry has laid out, are creating a multi-sector coalition. So very similar, different words. Centering racial equity is key for the Built for Zero model. We have core values of inclusion that include racial equity. What we know is when we're talking about health inequities like Built for Zero, we're talking about health inequities that are related to things like homelessness. We know that we have disproportionate representation from populations of color in particular. And so centering racial equity and ensuring that we're doing the necessary work to create equitable systems is key. Finally, targeted data-driven housing investments are key for Built for Zero in order for communities to be successful. We say we need strategic, data-driven, and diverse housing supports investments. So same, different competition, or what we believe that the Built for Zero model and that the all hands on deck model work very well together. If you can imagine the Built for Zero model as the philosophy or as a framework that comes with a series of promising practices and a whole host of resources for local communities, what does it look like in a hyper-local setting? It looks like all hands on deck. Those communities that have adopted Built for Zero across the community, while they have the framework in place, they each look different on the ground because of the unique strengths, assets, gaps, and weaknesses that exist in those communities. And so we feel like we have a good relationship here and are excited to learn more about Built for Zero and to lean into the resources that will be provided through that partnership.
Back to just review, the One-Stop Shop Homeless Resource Center, Low Barrier Shelter, the permanent tiny home. We believe those are worthy first steps to take consideration of. We have begun looking at what a one-stop homeless resource center could look like, vetting some possible locations. Nothing has been decided, haven't presented anything to the system that's yet to be developed or is in development. Low barrier shelters, same thing. As you know, Topeka Jump has researched this well. A representation is here today from Jump, and they continue to work with us on what are the best practices around the country. Permanent housing, tiny home village, we are in the process of looking at those. In your pack or in your PowerPoint, is a basic overview of the one-stop shop, homeless resource center, and those essential components plus more that we believe are important. Mental health services, financial services, employment services, life skills, shelter and housing services, and basic need services. Again, what is it for? To bring people to a place where as many resources that are possible can be obtained from people who are living on the streets. This is in your PowerPoint as well. The one-stop shop is the blue bubble in the middle. The smaller bubbles outside are the homeless camps, or where homeless people reside. Outside of those are CMS, ORTs, and MTS. There's a legend over to the side. That's our case management folks, our outreach teams, and our transportation teams, bringing people to the one-stop shop after they've developed healthy relationships outside in the camps to bring them to a place where they trust. When we first started the Mobile Access Partnership, we might have had 15 to 20 people who would come. Trust wasn't there. Trust built up over 3 years, and now it's not uncommon to see 60, 70, 80, 90 plus people twice a week at the Mobile Access Partnership. Used to be they'd come for showers, they still do. Used to be they'd come for food, they still do. But more people today are coming for relationship because this has become a community. That's what we need to have here to help people move out of homelessness into some of those square boxes or rectangles are up at the right-hand corner, TRM. Or permanent supportive housing on the other side, transitional supportive housing, or what we call LBS right now, does not exist, low barrier shelter for stabilization. There's a couple of different ways to look at low barrier shelter. One is congregate, one big building that you put people in, or a series of larger buildings like warehouse, or non-congregate in small cabins. Again, low barrier, management is the key. It's not no barrier when we're talking about low barrier. Topeka Rescue Mission has people trying to get clean and sober and remain that way. You can't have people in who are not interested in that this time to mix with that population. That's been a problem. So there's a gap in our community. So we would look at one option or both options to take a look at. I know the one that's in Minnesota basically combines the two together. More information coming on that in the future. Permanent tiny home communities are springing up around the country. This is one in Kansas City. It's called Eden Village. There's been a number of people that have gone there. It is a next step for people who've been stabilized. They have rent that they pay. It is secure. There is some order to it. It's helping those individuals stay there permanently, an affordable rent that's much cheaper than maybe they could find otherwise, and or they could move on after they find that they need a larger facility. Wrapping this up, ending chronic homelessness by 2030 in Topeka, Shawnee County is the question mark. Can we do this? Questions, do we want to do it? Do we believe we can? Are we willing to do what it takes? And the last piece of information in your packet here is an overview of everything we've talked about. The top box on the left is campaign system development. That's what we're doing right now. We're also developing the team selections and the communications platform, which we don't have time to get into today, but it's pretty elaborate on how we can communicate with each other with hundreds of people. Campaign launch, which will be coming probably in November. This is a offering for you to be able to see this before we go public. Project selection, what will that be? The project management system, the project launch, and a project completion. Projects could be the one-stop shop, low barrier shelter, and some of the others. Campaign to end chronic homelessness is obtainable, we believe. We believe if we work together to partner with each of you and the community, that we can set the standard, set the bar in our community. So what are we asking? And I'll let Brett unpack this.
Yeah, so what are we asking of the governing bodies today? We're asking for collaboration. We're asking for shared goals in moving forward on this. We're asking for objectives to be in alignment, strategies to be in alignment in order to be able to move forward, ensuring that we have long-term solutions in this community. We're asking for communication. We're asking for open dialogue, to have regular conversations and open communication between staff and between the coalition in order to ensure that we are continuing that alignment and that the work is moving forward, both in the Built for Zero model within the city, but also in the all hands on deck work. A public awareness campaign to give folks a sense of what chronic homelessness looks like, to destigmatize those who are affected, and to promote those programs that are available for support, especially in the times that we are in today. And finally, we're asking for connection. We're asking for resource sharing. If either of these governing bodies are connected to resources that will be able to move this work forward, we ask for connection to those in order to be able to accomplish this goal by 2030.
Thank you, Mayor. That's our PowerPoint, our presentation, and we are open to answering any questions at your discretion.
Okay, thank you both. The floor is not open, so if you have questions about the presentation or just in general about what we're trying to accomplish here, just indicate to me and I'll acknowledge you. Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about what I'm seeing here. I may not convey that excitement, but I am. Back on the funding piece, or the cost, roughly $40 million. Are you far enough along in your breakdown to understand what the cost to the hospitals are at this point?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we're not far enough along in that process. We continue to be in dialogue with our healthcare partners, but gathering that data typically takes some time. So we're still working on those numbers.
I know ultimately this is going to come down to a question of where the funding comes from. That's why you're here, and that's appropriate. But, you know, if out of the 40 million, 20 million of that is healthcare cost, and the hospitals can spend 5 million each to save 10 million each, it's going to be very appropriate to ask them to be a solid partner in this, both hospitals. So I know you're considering that, and you'll get to that point at some time soon. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to ask this the best way I can. You referenced HUD on the numbers. What did you mean by that? Or do they only look at, like, if you're in a certain position, or how come we're not looking at everybody? I didn't quite understand that, the HUD.
I don't understand HUD, so, but here's what I do understand. They look for certain numbers in regards to homeless, and what they are not putting in their requirement to report is people who are incarcerated at the time of the count. And so we decided that it was important to work with our director to say, what are you seeing there that would be identified as homeless?
Okay. I mean, because I think we should include everybody, so that's what where you were coming from.
Yes, agreed.
Regardless of, that's interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Dobler.
Question. So one of the things that struck me about the presentation we had a while back on the Built for Zero was this idea that there's a lot of folks, a lot of agencies out there that are competing for the same money to do sort of the same thing when it comes to homelessness and other issues, whether that's housing or immediate care or food or whatever. And a lot of times, because of the lack of a cohesive database, people don't know where to go, and it made a lot of sense to me that the general concept is to get a database where we're tracking everybody that needs help and can send them to the appropriate place. So we're not competing for the same money. You've mentioned a few partners, but I'm curious where, you know, Breakthrough House, Habitat, I could list a lot of really great agencies in this community that do a lot of good things. Where are they in this process?
Great question. The partners that you saw were for Mobile Access Partnership at this time. If you notice the strategic development team and the different sectors, there are those agencies represented within sectors, and also some representation on the strategic development team list. So in regards to working with Breakthrough House, we're working with them right now. In fact, we have a representative in this room right now behind me. We're also working with Cornerstone. Habitat, quarterback is the leader of Habitat, Janice Watkins, on the housing. So we have Steve Vogel, who is assistant quarterback, the president of the Landlord Association that I believe is right over here. So to your question, where are they? We're building, and we've got an incredible great start.
Karen, if I can just add to that, Councilman, we have the potential here through these partnerships that you referenced through data sharing to not only accomplish the goal that we have set through all hands on deck, but to actually change the entire human services landscape in this city and county. As those relationships are built and as individuals have access to data, they're making decisions that they simply cannot make now as a result of the lack of data. And as a result of the lack of relationships that they have. Many of our partners do work well together, but as you begin to weave them together and as folks begin to share resources and as folks begin to share data and drive toward a common goal, that really transforms the work in the community. And so this is not only going to have implications for those who are experiencing homelessness, but those who are at risk of experiencing homelessness, those who are the working poor, those who are under the poverty level. So we have an opportunity here through Built for Zero and through All Hands on Deck to make some remarkable strides with our Human Services, Social Services Coalition in Topeka and Shawnee County.
Councilman Kell?
So on the Silver Consulting, I voted no on that because I felt a group like this could take care of that situation and save the city a lot of money on that because a lot of the stuff that was brought up from Silver is stuff we've already been talking about around here. And one was the one-stop shop. And I know with Silver Consulting, that was limited access almost, like limited time frames, things like that. I think the big pushing point on that needs to be availability to be able to get to that one-stop shop with hours, with days, even with transportation. Because with the Silver Consulting's recommendation was like 2 days a week for like 3 hours a day, and we're not sure where we're gonna put it. And it's one of those things of, if people are working and they're on the verge of homelessness, they can't get there because they're working, or if they don't have a car and it's all the way across town, how are they supposed to get there? So many different things that keep, that one-stop shop was becoming more of an issue than a positive. So I think that's the one thing that needs to be thrown out with the Silver Consulting aspect of things, is not limit the times, maybe multiple locations or transportation situations. And I think the biggest thing we need to start doing now is starting to set plans, goals, standards, because what I keep on hearing from a lot of people is, well, we just keep on talking about it, but where are we actually going? It doesn't mean these things need to be set in stone and this is the way we're going to do it for the next 10 years. But we need to start looking at aspects of what is our goal for a person in the first month, first quarter, first 6 months, in a year, and how are we going to try to get them from point A to point B? Because right now it's just no one knows. And I think my only problem with great presentation, my only problem I think is the communication aspect of things. When your top decision makers are 5 steps away from, in essence, being in the trenches, things always don't trickle up like the way they're supposed to, and you're always not, the person up top's always not getting the best information and the most accurate information. So then they're making decisions off biased or false information. So I think sometimes, it's nice sometimes if your day-to-day kind of go that way, but the decision maker needs to really be in the trenches also, and being out there, looking at things firsthand, seeing things, because I've been in plenty of workplaces where I've tried to talk to someone 5 levels up from me, and it'd get 1 or 2 levels up, and it'd just stop. So it's one of those things. I think that's maybe an area that needs to be looked at, as the communications up and downwards.
Thank you, Councilman Kell. I'd just like to respond to that.
Please.
We don't plan to talk about this until 2030. We plan to get to work right away, and we already are.
Recording in progress.
And
You're on the record.
Brett's going to make it happen over here. In regards to communication, it is always the biggest challenge, to be able to get the right information. What we hope as we go forward to both of these governing bodies is to bring you the most accurate information that we can possibly come up with to make the best decisions possible. And that is one of our goals. That's why we're involving a lot of people in this who are really smart, who know stuff all the way from top to bottom. Part of this is people who are experiencing homelessness to advise us, as well as CEOs from different organizations. So we believe that there is a desire to work together in this community. Not that this is the first time, not that we've never done it before in working together, but this will take it to a whole nother level, as Brett had said.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Cook?
I guess my question is more to our two governing bodies. As we've heard this presentation, and we've heard a lot of presentations over the years, similar to this, to address homelessness, it comes down to one thing: action and money. In order for there to be action, there has to be money. And I look at the county, and I see our audit finance director at the back. She's trying to hide back there, I know. But I look at our funding source and what we have available. We just passed through our budget cycle to set our budget for 2025. If you were to come to the county today and say, we want to start this project tomorrow, the only funding source that I know that we would have available to us would be to draw further from our reserves. Drawing from our reserves is that's not something you would do lightly. It affects your bond ratings, it affects your ability to borrow, it affects your stability, but that's the only resource that we have. My question to you as the mayor is, if we were to draw from our reserves, where would the city come up with their funding source?
Good question. I'll defer to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to Mr. Cook's, Commissioner Cook's comments, we do have a pretty healthy reserve fund as well. That would probably be one of the primary sources that we look to. I do have the team pulling from the cost of our homeless encampment cleanups, so that way we can identify that as a potential source and have discussion around that. But to Commissioner Cook's comments, I mean, the reserves will probably be one of the primary sources of funding that we would first look at.
Okay. Councilman Duncan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll address that real quick. I guess, first of all, we don't know what the ask is. So it's a little presumptuous to say we're going to have to do this or we're going to have to do that if we don't even know if it's $50,000 or $50 million, right? So I think it's okay to take a little time because they haven't asked us for any money yet today or told us what that is as they work towards that data to decide where to prioritize these things. And as Councilman Dobler said, as they look to our community partners and say, hey, you're spending X amount of dollars. If you spend this, we can reduce that cost. I think that's the same for us on the city side that we've talked about a lot is we are spending millions of dollars to address the issue in a way that has been more triage than actually working towards solutions. And that's not a criticism of our staff who have worked hard. That's what they've been faced with as they've tried to just deal with it as best they can. And that's one reason that we moved into finally finding a program like Built for Zero, because it gives us a little more direction and it guides our staff towards that path to helping us prioritize, collect that data, and have a plan that stops the triage and lets us find where to put the current resources we're already spending, reallocating those, and then saving money on the back end, whether that's cleanups, whether that's police calls, whether that's mental health services, right, all of those. And so I know we've talked about before that there is a savings piece to that. There's a humanity piece too, and I know when we have these meetings, we don't talk about that as much. I always try to tell people, it's implied, I promise, that the humanity piece is first, but then we have to get down to the nuts and bolts of the practicality of it. But, so I think from our perspective, I'm willing to wait to see what that ask is, and then we can figure out where we go from there. I think the one difference, Commissioner Cook, is we're spending, as a city, we're spending millions of dollars on this problem, so we have some funds to maybe redirect or reallocate, whereas I know the county, it's a little different, just financial situation, you know, in terms of how finances work and departments and that kind of thing. So I guess we have that and you don't, so that's a little bit different situation for us also. Thank you, Mayor.
May I respond?
Please.
With all due respect, council member, number one expenditure for the county, our Department of Corrections. Number one mental health provider in Shawnee County is the Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Many of the people that we have incarcerated in Shawnee County are dealing with persistent homelessness and addressing that. Working with our partners has been a key. Working with Vallejo, working with the rescue shelter, working to end that or address that when a person comes into our facility. So to say that the county doesn't have money committed to it, I think is an understatement. But because we've been addressing that through our corrections, through our mental health, and through our housing. So.
If I may, I don't believe that Councilman Duncan made that comment, but he did probably touch on the idea that what we have been spending could maybe be shared or redirected in other sources. Councilman Dobler?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Duncan. I think what I like about this process is the data-driven part of it. If we can identify the majority of the costs of homelessness to this community, and then as we've talked about, we can go to those folks, and it's going to be a lot of the city, it's going to be some of the county, it's going to be some other entities. And if there's a way we can spend money to work towards ending homelessness, or at least getting it under control, and it saves us money in the long run, it becomes an investment at that point. We can see what our dollars are going to get us in the long run. Is it going to be perfect? No, it's not. There is the compassion piece that both governments spend money on right now. There's a lot of what we spend now and what we'll spend in the future that there is no return on. We just do it because we have to take care of people that aren't as fortunate as most of us. So I think it's, again, I like this approach because I think this is going to lay out something that we can commit to, and we can keep track of what those returns look like for both governments. I don't think we need to get in a back and forth of who's spending what. It's an issue that both governments deal with every day, and it costs our taxpayers a lot of money the way we're doing it right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Valdiviacula?
Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Can you hear? Okay.
There you go.
I just want to say there's a lot that Councilman Duncan is saying that I agree with, as well as Councilman Dobler. As the one that's been pushing for Built for Zero for almost 3.5 years, maybe more than that, it is good to see that the state has supported it, that the state is pushing this initiative. I think we all know on the governing body side that there is going to be a chunk of change that is going to have to be put out to help make Built for Zero successful. That has to be the absolute focus for us because we know it has the proven methodology. With this other aspect in hand, I think that there are definitely benefits to it. I do not think that in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, that the city should be looked to as the beacon for giving the biggest chunk of change in this, because we know that we have the private sector, that can help and move in on this. It's all of our issue. It's all of our challenges. And I think that I would just, want to remind the governing body is with Built for Zero, there is definitely going to be a chunk of change involved, along with everything else that we are spending resources on for the unsheltered crisis that we're having right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Hitler.
Thank you, Mayor. Lots of thoughts going through my head. I guess for starters, to your point, as far as I knew and felt coming into this, the purpose was for us of this session was for us to jointly look at basically the three-legged stool of private sector, government, and business, not to be lobbing back and forth who was spending enough or who would do more. You didn't mention alcohol and drug. We both do that. I like the concept that you talked about, that we were inventorying. I'm a little impatient about it because I've been involved in this for almost 50 years, for crying out loud, in the nonprofit and community-based sector. And we really have, back before this issue exploded here, that balance of the city doing some social service grants, doing affordable housing, the county doing the things that we've listed, and the rescue mission and others in the private sector. I mean, the rescue mission took great pride, as did their donors, in the fact that all of that was privately funded. And it worked as a really great balance. And I see Trey nodding in the back. Then we've got government-supported housing or Section 8 certificates that can both help prevent homelessness as well as be resources. And when I ask people after the Silver report, which was just, this is where we are. She wasn't a consultant. She was trying to gather up what you all had discussed. It was, all right, let's, if the one-stop shop maybe is virtual for the most part rather than live, but the, inventorying all of the agencies that are doing things now, which we've done before, and then checking off which sectors they can help in, so everybody's got the same full referral network, and we can do that today. And we've done it before, so just, if we need to upgrade that kind of thing, fine, but we've got those pieces in place, and a great collaborative nonprofit and helping sector. If we need to work harder on, again, identifying what we need and engaging the private sector you led the rescue mission for years, as you all did so well before. People are concerned about raising taxes, so if we all look at people donating what they can, I think it turns out to be a stronger system. One of the things I realized over the years was that the private funding was much more nimble. It didn't have to go through as much time or as many traps on what can we do with this and how do we put that together. You just do it. That was really why you all ascribed to that for years and years. So I hope we're all looking at that, at what did we already do well and who helped us with this, and are there other sources? What people said to me when I said, so are you looking for more from us or not? It was like, well, no, we've got the private sector out here, and if those of you in the government sector can help us leverage other people's money from other places and bring it into town, that would be great. And I thought, well, that's good. So I just wanted to kind of balance out that discussion of the money as well as getting the services going. Something that a number of us on the council have experienced, and I imagine you commissioners have as well, is that if somebody's homeless and desperate, they end up calling us to figure out what to do. And overall, the strongest thing that I see is that no matter how we identify the sector, it's been very clear that we need to have a case management role in there. And it can't just be from one little nugget of folks, because if somebody enters the system through Mirror and they've got somebody they trust at Mirror, that person can be their key to that network. If somebody has entered through the mental health system and they've got somebody they trust at Breakthrough or at Vallejo, instead of sending them to meet somebody new that's going to help them with this, it's clear that trust and faith, and you were telling me the other day that the MAP program, and you mentioned it, I guess, this evening, that, boy, that's building its success, is building that trust factor from those individuals that met somebody they trusted. So thank you for all the work that's gone so far. I'll wrap up by just saying I'm impatient again because I just want to see that list and see it move. And I think all of us are willing to help in the ways that we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. If I may, what I was hoping for today is really an honest discussion about how we can help. Councilman Duncan put it in those terms, what is the ask? And the ask is, from me anyway, that as Councilwoman Hiller talked about, we ask more than just the governing bodies to help us with this problem. I went to a luncheon meeting today, and it was a great meeting for a great cause, great organization, and they're called capital campaigns, and they reach out to those people who have an interest in trying to help this particular issue and problem. I know a capital campaign to help the homelessness might fall on a lot of deaf ears, but you might be surprised too that there would be companies, organizations who can't give hundreds of thousands of dollars, but could give $10,000, $20,000. And combined with that, with what we dedicate from both governing bodies, I think you can get to a starting point. And it is a community problem. It's not just a governing body problem. You know, it's important for us to understand, and I know that we do. I'm preaching to the choir here. People want to be here in Topeka for a variety of reasons. The problem is that not everybody has access to all the good things in Topeka right now. And it's hard to make the adjustments available to everybody without going through a lot of discussions and a lot of hand-wringing about what it's going to cost us. I think we build on what we have now and really make it stronger by adopting the effort that we want to make successful in the Built for Zero. I think we look at what we've been presented, not just in this presentation today, but over the time that we've had for months to talk about this, and we probably revisit the same steps about what should be done. Sometimes I think the long list makes it look very daunting. The short list is where I want to start. And the short list, I think, is very practical. I think it doesn't mean that today we would say, okay, we're going to do this, but I think the short list gives us a start to, okay, we've decided on one or two things that we're really going to focus on. Then let's get to work on that and find out if those one or two things are possible. And if not, find out why. And if it's too overwhelming, move on to the next one on the list, so that we are having some forward progress on our effort. And that has to be something like, as mentioned by the commissioner with the Department of Corrections, my friend Brian Cole. He's a smart man, but more importantly, he's a compassionate man. And he knows in his area of expertise, this is what he can contribute to helping the problem. He knows that his facility isn't the one that will change probably all of the homelessness issues, but he knows that he can provide a starting point for some of them when he has partners taking advantage of that time where those gentlemen are there so that they can be exposed to the opportunities once they get out. And that collaboration and coordination of what happens after they get out is important for us as a governing body and for the organizations we have in the city of Topeka to be ready for them, so that when Brett Kell gets released, there's somebody who's going to be his mentor, somebody who's going to take him on and lead him in the direction that he needs to go, and we will move those numbers incrementally. We won't get 15, 20, 100 people sheltered in permanent housing in a year. If we get 5 or 10, we're starting down that road. And I think that's what my hope was for today, is that the ask is, from me anyway, for us as joint governing bodies, that we look at this very short list of 3 things and decide jointly that we're going to do everything we can with the resources we have within our agencies to work with compassionate strategies, to define all the details that will come into play on how people will be able to get to a one-stop homeless resource center. Councilwoman Hiller, maybe it's not a place, it's a opportunity by electronics, video, Zoom, whatever. If that's the way it works best. We had a meeting earlier today with the city manager and myself and assistant city manager talking about the issues of transit here in Topeka and how you can access some things and how maybe we can do it differently. That's part of the planning and the process, what we would do about where we might put a homeless resource center. Find out some partners who already have a good run at it. Like you look at Mr. Jonathan Sublett, and he's got a lot of good things going with him right now and what he's doing to address his part of the community. But he thinks big too. He thinks that this can be replicated across the city and county. I think it can too, but you have to have those partners, and you have to have us moving in that direction, not trying to grab that long list, which we'll eventually have to address as they come up. But those basic one or two projects that could show that both governing bodies and the community, it has to come back to the community, support what we want to do, will take their part in what we have to do, and contribute to the effort in a way that is more than just get it done. They will help us look at financing opportunities, location opportunities, property opportunities. Those are the things that I hope this kind of a meeting generates. That energy of collaboration that has always existed in Shawnee County and Topeka, Kansas, but sometimes it gets put on the shelf because we're doing so many things we forget that we need to revisit that power that comes with that kind of a collaboration. So, Councilman Kell.
So I want to ask of you, there's three goals right there, the low barrier shelter, tiny home community, and the one-stop shop. One of those could literally be started tomorrow, which is the one-stop shop. So let's start putting that plan in motion let's get that going. That's the easiest step to get going. We can start with working with Avondale East and those organizations there, DCF, other places like that, and start getting this in, like, as you know, I know some people have shaken their head at the virtual aspect of things, but get it going some way that there are the people that are in need. And we have two, like I said, then you have two different locations, southeast and central Topeka taken care of right there. And that is our easiest step to get going. And like I said, I think this subject has had too much talk for too long, and steps need to be taken to get things done. I know a lot of people in town are tired of hearing the talk, tired of hearing this. Get plans going, get things going. And like I said, the one-stop shop is the easiest one to get going. We could have that done tomorrow with a plan today, opening up a virtual one-stop with a plan to get a set location in the future. So I think that's where we need to start looking at what's the easiest goals to hit first, hit those, and move on from there. Thank you.
City Manager and then Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Kell, to Councilman Kell's point, going through this process, I've had the opportunity to learn that we actually do have a mobile one-stop shop, and I mean that's going on today. So to the councilman's point, Mayor, definitely the resources are there, but I think it comes to the planning and actual execution of developing or building or standing up a one-stop shop. But to the credit of the partners, the one-stop shop, it's a mobile one-stop shop, but that does exist today. And so, I mean, it could be an issue of going back to the communication, just ensuring that our city and our residents know that that's a resource, an available resource today. To the other point about what's the easiest things to move forward, I can tell you that we do have a resource stakeholder that is ready to build tiny homes. And it doesn't cost any of the governing bodies anything. It's just ensuring that we have the proper zoning in place to ensure that we have the staff available to permit those types of developments. So I mean that's one easy thing that I believe that the two governing bodies it could possibly support without really costing a dime. So it's not always the money. I do want to impress upon the governing bodies. It's not always about resources or funding. Sometimes it's just a matter of putting the mechanisms in place to ensure that these types of developments can occur. And so I would definitely love to defer to the All Hands on Deck team to see to fruition those types of developments, whether it be the one-stop shop or a tiny home community in tandem or in parallel. Because I will tell you that there's resources out there who are ready to move forward, and they just need our support.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make this, sounds like you've been in the trenches, I'll say that a little bit.
Shoes are dirty.
His shoes are dirty. You probably don't have no shoes on. Anyway, I want to say this, while we're here, and when I heard campaign, I thought we were going to set up a campaign for everybody. So can we set that up, that people can give? Whether it's, there you go. I'm just looking at you, Barry, because Brett's looking down. You know, Topeka is it's a giving community. Shawnee County is giving. When the rescue mission said, we've got to shut our doors, what happened? We had Girl Scouts that came and was selling cookies at work. We had people that were just giving, and we raised above what they wanted. And I think I've heard it a couple of times, and I totally agree. You know, we all need to own this. $5 here, $10 here, it all adds up. So if we can start that financial campaign today, I think that would be awesome, and let's watch it grow. I am going to give $100. I'm going to plant $100 in that. I'll write a check. Hope it don't bounce, but I'll write a check. And let's start giving. I get so many, and this is what I thought of. I thought of a lady that called about a homeless camp. And it was at 17th and Adams. And she complained about it, and she wanted it cleaned up. And then she called me back and said, what can I do? What can I give? There's so many people, they want to know what to do or how to do. And sometimes that's the only thing they can do. So I would like to see that set up today. And I would like to hear that when you go on the red couch or whatever. Let's start giving. Let's start giving right today. And that's a movement that we can make, that we all can make it happen. And Mayor, I think we could watch that grow. That's a short list. That little hundred's a short list. But there's people that have it that want to give.
Pastor?
Councilwoman Ortiz, thank you. It is going to take giving. I would like to say that, as many of you have been in a church experience before, where there's the plate that goes around, and then they want to send some kids to camp, or they want to do a mission project, and people clearly need to understand they need to give in addition to what they're already giving. Otherwise, it hurts something else. We have great organizations in this community doing phenomenal work. Some of them are right back here, one I was pretty connected with. We don't want to trade one for the other. These organizations, Rescue Mission, others, need to have the continued financial support. We have to look at additional of things that aren't being done. We have to look at the multiplicity of different avenues. If you take a look at the brochure on MAP, you will see those different organizations. What you see there is local nonprofit. You will see national nonprofit with Street Dog Coalition. You will see a private organization like a hospital. You will see government funds. Some of these were state funds that came in to build the shower trailer. You will see private donors that help the Topeka Rescue Mission. You notice we didn't come here asking you for money tonight. We came here tonight to ask you to partner with us on this. It will take the village to do it. As you give and thank you, and we'll tell you if your check bounces, but we'll give you a nice thank you note if it doesn't. It will take additional resources to be able to do what we need to do going forward. And I think that this community, as well as the state, as well as the nation, can look at this and say this is something to invest in.
That's right.
It starts here, though. How do we invest with our leaders, both the city and county level, to say, yeah, we're with you on this. We didn't ask you for any money. We probably will someday, but not right now, because to your point, Councilman Duncan, we haven't given you a price tag on anything yet, but we will. But it won't just be yours. It will be all of ours to see what is our part. Because at the Mobile Access Partnership, as an example, everybody brought their resources separately under one umbrella to get the thing done. The one-stop shop that we have now, Councilman, that is a good springboard to getting that thing done, like you're talking about. Everybody brings what they can to get the job done.
Oh, Councilwoman Hofer.
Okay, I guess then you ask the questions. As far as I'm concerned, it's just all of them.
Thank you.
It's a question of what do you need us to do next? I'm assuming you're going to take your teams that you're trying to build and get those built out.
Correct.
That's kind of your next step. What is the step after that?
May I respond?
Please.
Okay. I want to follow the rules here. Next step is to pass this on out to the sectors in our community so that the sectors, the 16 sectors, and more will probably be developed, will understand the same message the best that we can at the same time. And that we will have feedback from those sectors we agree that this is a good next step. This is a good location, potentially. This is a reasonable thing that we can do in our community. When we have that information, and again, we don't want to take forever on this. Councilwoman Hiller, I am impatient too. I don't have as much time as I used to have to get this thing done, okay? So we will work as fast as we can without cutting before we measure. And so we want to measure well to cut, and we will come back to you and say, here's what we've found out. And here's all the input and the understanding we have of this next thing to do. And hopefully that won't take terribly long to do. We're almost at the end of this year. We have a lot of other things that we have to do to get this done by the end of the year. But I would say expect something in 2025 early is here's what we believe that we need to do next. And that would be the best way I can answer your question.
Okay, then I have one ask for your data. The problem with the hospitals not having a lot of expenses. Does anybody track whether and this is for the older, the 65 plus crowd, are they tracking to see who's on Medicare? And if they can be on Medicare to help with some of the costs? I know Medicare does not pay everything, but it's a help to defray some of it. So is there any way to track and find out if they're trying to help them or somebody trying to help them get on Medicare to help save us some of the money?
I don't get paid leave. I get respiratory support.
Mayor, may I?
Please.
Yeah, so to your point with the hospitals, we know that our healthcare partners track a lot. We also know that they're large organizations. We also know that they are bound by certain privacy principles, and so we're incredibly patient with our ask. That said, looking at things like Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, we're looking at all of those types of revenue streams. So this is going to be an incredibly diverse revenue stream when we're all said and done. This is going to be braiding together all kinds of different pieces. But that's part of the beauty of the diverse multi-sector coalition is that we have experts sitting in these sectors who have access not only to that information, but also to the individuals who will be able to connect us to those resources, to be able to braid those in, to be able to move the work forward. So the answer to your question is yes, just not yet.
Well, I know from family experience, I had a cousin who turned 65, and we somehow got on because we had an investment magazine, and he said, well, I get that. And he says, well, I don't have any health care. Why not? You are 65, you've worked most of your life, you have the ability to get it. Well, I really don't need to do it. And yeah, you do. So I'm sure there's some people out there who think, oh, no, I don't need that. So I want to take advantage of every possible
way to help them and help us as possible. Thank you.
Councilman Miller?
I'm glad that we came here today. I think it's extremely important for these type of meetings to happen. Thank you for the presentation, you two. Very well done. I know that you guys are a part of a huge team that's coming together for this. And with that in mind, all I want to say is that it's incredible what can be accomplished when you don't care who gets the credit. That's it.
Okay. It looks like we're coming up on our adjourn time. I want to echo what Councilman Miller said and add to it that I'm very appreciative of the commissioners joining us in this meeting. I'd never want any invitation from the city to be seen as possibly an opportunity to point fingers or give people a hard time, because that's not our intent whatsoever. It is that we recognize the contribution that the commission makes to the overall well-being of the county and the city as well. And sometimes that isn't communicated on a regular basis. And I think, again, that goes back to the communication, how often and how effective it is. I know the commission is challenged because of some of their rules of who can be in the room at the time and how many of you can be in the room. But I would ask and hope that as we follow up and go through these updates of how we find out what possibilities are there for us, as mentioned by the city manager, that when those updates happen, then an invitation goes to the commission and leave it to the chair to decide who may also join us in those update meetings, so it comes from directly to them rather than getting filtered through, this is what we heard and here's a report. I think face-to-face opportunities to communicate is much more effective, and I think it makes us more responsive to the needs because we're seeing it firsthand. And so I make that suggestion that there be a dual communication stream that continues on this topic and others that are important to both Shawnee County and the city of Topeka. And I certainly do want to reiterate that it is a responsibility that we all have. Nobody can back away from it and say that it falls on the city, it falls on the county solely, it falls on the Rescue Mission or any single entity. It is our effort. The way people feel about their community comes from their experiences in the community, whether they're proud of their community or they're ashamed of their community. I believe Topekans are proud of their community. That's why they want to be here. That's why our population has grown, even incrementally. It's grown because people want to be here. Every time I get an opportunity to speak to somebody who's moved here, I ask them why. And their response usually is, it's a welcoming community. I like it. I can walk around, enjoy the things that are here. You have so many activities, and the vibrancy of the city is important for us. So that's why we've chosen to be here. I talked to a couple just last week, said we had come to visit, and we decided we were going to move here, and they now reside here and are already involved in some volunteer aspect of the community. So they're finding their niche, and I think there are a lot of us out there, as Councilwoman Ortiz expressed, finding their niche. How can I help? Quit coming with the ask without the offer to assist in making that happen. So I think this is the effort that I want to continue to bring on any joint meetings that we might have the opportunity to have on any topics in Shawnee County and the city of Topeka. So again, my thanks to the commission, my thanks to the pastor and to Brett. And for those who have attended, obviously it's an important issue that everybody wanted to hear. So thank you for your attendance and attention. This meeting is now adjourned.